العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. ليلة جمعة مباركة إن شاء الله، ليلة استغفار، ليلة توبة، ليلة العودة إلى الله إن شاء الله. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be amongst those who seek forgiveness on this night and return to Him and purify, especially as we begin or enter into the month of forgiveness, Rajab al-Asab, the month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dedicated for mercy amongst mankind, amongst human beings, and therefore if we forgive each other, inshallah we will be subjects of the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to speak a little about seeking forgiveness as a path of purification, tazkiyah. Tazkiyatun nafs, we've been speaking about this almost every Thursday night for a while, except whenever we had occasions. And we've been reflecting on the dua from Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, dua Makarim al-Akhlaq. However, I want us to move on to another dua known as dua Hazeen, which is recommended in Salatul Layl. Perhaps we will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity. Perhaps we are amongst those who would be given the chance and the opportunity to seek forgiveness in the time of Sahar, wal mustaghfirina bil ashar. Inshallah, we're amongst them. Before I get into the dua and reflect on some lines of the dua, and inshallah we'll break it down over the coming weeks so that we can complete this dua. Again, I mentioned it is a dua that is recommended for specifically for Salatul Layl. You can recite it other times as well. After the last rak'ah, it is recommended to recite this dua, and then there are other a'mal that you can do, sujood and Subbuhun Quddus Rabbul Malaikati wal Ruh and so on. Nevertheless, I wanted to clarify, since there is a little bit of confusion. I heard about it and I received some messages from community members about the beginning of this month, the month of Rajab. There was an announcement from the Crescent Committee through the Imam Foundation that they normally monitor the moon sighting, and they check different cities and different reports that come, and they make announcements based on their announcement is typically based on the fatwa of the predominant maraja, who do not necessarily accept the sharing of the night. They go by the sighting of your city or nearby cities that would give you confidence. I wanted to clarify this. This did occur a while ago, and the community had a little bit of confusion, and we had to go over this. One more time I am saying it, and I want to keep it brief. Visibility of the moon in our city is basically either you see it or you don't see it. If you don't see it, the rule of thumb is you continue the month, unless you have yaqeen or itmi'nan, certainty, some level of confidence that I could have seen the moon. Not that somebody else saw the moon. That's not my concern. That I could have seen the moon. Either science tells me that I could have seen the moon for sure. Sometimes moon sighting calculations, they tell you that the moon is visible. In your city it is visible, but somehow it's cloudy. If you have yaqeen, you can go with that yaqeen. Sometimes the science tells you it's possible, 50-50, depends on the weather, and you don't see it. If somebody else nearby sees the moon and that gives me yaqeen that I could have seen the moon, then I go with that. If not, we complete the month. Completing the month is the rule of thumb, is actually the correct way of approaching it. If you don't see it, you complete the month, complete the 30 days. If you see it, or you have certainty. Now, if somebody in, I don't know, California sees the moon, does that give me yaqeen? If you have experience, you'll tell me no. Does that make me certain that I could have seen the moon? I'll tell you no. So California, San Diego, often they see it. They have completely different variables, and therefore they have more of a chance of seeing the moon. Therefore, their visibility does not apply to us. If it was seen there, it does not apply to us, and therefore the beginning of the month would be still Thursday. So today was the first day of the month, and we'll go with that inshallah for the rest of the month. So I don't want to take much more of your time. Just the beginning of the dua al-hazeen. In there, the Imam, after the Basmala, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, he begins with Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Many of the du'as of Imam Zayn al-Abidin begin with the salawat because it is a very powerful dua. It has been answered already, confirmed to have been answered. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala confirmed. He says in the Quran, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. It is continuous, the salawat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the angels. We connect with them by doing it. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So it is a powerful dua. We begin with it. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Then he says, Unajika ya mawjudan fi kulli makan. It's an amazing beginning. He says, Unajik. Najwa is whispering. And the dua that has the style of munajat is a whispered, they typically translate it as a whispered dua or supplication, invocation. Meaning it is for times where you speak privately with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Munajat is meant to be in privacy, in secrecy. Between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that position, you sit quietly and do. This is why this dua is specific for the time of sahar. Namat uyunun nas, people are asleep, and some who have a strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the Almighty, they get up and they whisper, they do munajat. The Imam begins with unajika. After the salawat, unajika, I am whispering. And whispering also signifies one who is very close. If you're far away, can you whisper? If I'm far from somebody, I cannot whisper. I have to be really close to them to do najwa, to do the whispering. Munajat. So he says unajika, and confirming that he is very close, he says ya mawjudan fi kulli makan, or the one who is present everywhere. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is within us. Yahulu bayna al-mar'i wa qalbih. You know, some consider the closest is when he says أقرب إلي من حبل الوريد, that he's closer to us than our jugular vein. That's very close, yeah? There's another one which perhaps could be even closer or somehow cannot be fully comprehended. He says يحول بين المرء وقلبه. He is between ourselves and our heart. How do you explain that? What is the self and what is the heart. بين المرء وقلبه. This is how close Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. How can we explain this? We cannot really fully understand it. He is with everything, not as a part. مع كل شيء لا بالجزئية. Imam Ali alayhi salam confirms. He's with everything, but not as a part of. We cannot say he's a part of me, والعياذ بالله, or a part of anything. But he's with everything. وهو معكم أينما كنتم. Wherever you are. أناجيك يا موجودا في كل مكان. He confirms that you are everywhere, Ya Allah. Therefore, I don't need to call you loud. I would whisper to you. أناجيك. There's a dua, a similar beginning of a dua from Nabiullah Musa ala nabiyina wa alayhi salam. Hadith says, the Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam, he speaks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Ya Rab, are you far so I have to call you loud? Or are you near so I have to whisper? Munajat. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I am with the one who is with me. With. Ma'iyya. Ana jalisu. Jalis is the one who sits with you, very close to you. But not all. This is why some call. Some have to say they have to call out, and some have to whisper. The Imam says, "Unajika ya mawjudan fi kulli makan, la'allaka tasma'u nida'i." Perhaps you would hear my call. Now, is it possible that God doesn't hear? He is the all-hearing. وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ. Whenever we're coming to the month of Sha'ban. Yeah, after Rajab we have Sha'ban. In Sha'ban there's a munajat. Munajat al-Sha'baniyya. In Munajat al-Sha'baniyya we have a similar concept. We say, وَاسْمَعْ نِدَائِي إِذَا نَادَيْتُكَ وَاسْمَعْ دُعَائِي إِذَا دَعَوْتُكَ وَاسْمَعْ نِدَائِي إِذَا نَادَيْتُكَ وَأَقْبِلْ عَلَيَّ إِذَا نَاجَيْتُكَ. Isma. We're asking God to hear, but He's the all-hearing. The problem is not from Him, it's from us. My call may not be in the right direction. I may not be calling the right person. You know, one of the Arafat, he says, when you call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not a matter of how many times you say, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. It's a matter of when you are remembering Him, you know, dhikr. Remembering Him, therefore you want to be with Him. You want to be the way He wants you to be. You want to obey Him. So here, وَاسْمَعْ لَعَلَّكَ تَسْمَعُ نِدَائِي فَقَدْ عَظُمَ جُرْمِي وَقَلَّ حَيَائِي. The problem is not that you cannot hear. The problem is my sins and my crimes are big. فَقَدْ عَظُمَ جُرْمِي وَقَلَّ حَيَائِي. I'm shameless. When we commit sins, do we not realize who we are sinning against? Who we are disobeying? It is shameless that we commit that. And this is why he says, لَعَلَّكَ تَسْمَعُ نِدَائِي. You perhaps, I'm whispering to you, perhaps you could hear me. Perhaps I could be heard, in other words. Because my prayer is a prayer of one who is sinful. I shouldn't expect to be heard. In the dua, when you call, Ya Sayyidi, Ya Ilahi, you know, in dua Kumail, Ya Ilahi, wa Sayyidi, wa Mawlaya, wa Rabbi. We should be grateful to God that He permits us, He allows us to call Him. You know, sometimes when we do something so bad and we're so far from, let's say, a parent, a father, and we call him, he says, I don't want to hear your voice. Please don't call my name. If somebody is really upset with. Imagine we disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We commit sins against God. And yet we are shameless and we come and we call Him. But He is so merciful, so forgiving that He accepts. But if we're genuine, لَعَلَّكَ تَسْمَعُ نِدَائِي. My call has to be sincere, perhaps it would be heard. If we are sincere despite our sinfulness, He will hear our prayers, He will hear our call, and He will answer us. Inshallah, the rest of the dua will continue. Mawlaya ya Mawlay. A beautiful part of the dua will continue in the coming weeks. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity in this month of Rajab to seek forgiveness and return to Him sincerely, to hear our dua, answer it, and grant us the best levels. وَاجْعَلْنَا مِنْ أَحْسَنِ عَبِيدِكَ نَصِيبًا عِنْدَكَ. Make us amongst the best servants in closeness to Him. We ask Him to make us amongst those who listen to what's said and follow what's best. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.